Hello once again, Monster Hobbies Model Car Garage Mechanics, and how are you today? Today I am going to be doing a small scale unboxing video. I don't usually do these, but I do have a little section on my YouTube channel dedicated to them. This one I'm really excited about because when I was a young kid way back in the 80s, there was actually a little drugstore out in Horseshoe Bay that I ended up finding these models, and they're really fun. These are the old Lindbergh Jumpin' Gene models, and here I have the Thrill Threads. This looks like a 32 Ford hot rod. It's a really cool kit. You can actually build these a couple of different ways. And for those that know that show rod kit that came out a little while ago from round 2, there's 2 cars included. This is another one in that set that round 2 has not released recently. But as you can see, it's cool because they have these denim stickers that go in here, like pockets on jeans. So without further ado, let's go down to the box and see what's on the bench. Now let's go back to the groovy days of hot rodding as we check out this Jumpin' Jeans Thrill Threads by good old Lindbergh. That's right, Lindbergh, with the yellow, black, and red banner. So it says a plastic model car kit with denim-like decals. Thrill Threads! And as you can see, this looks like a 34 Ford. It's got the little Chevy V8 in here and the grill shell. And the box is basically, it's the same everywhere, even on the end. Ta-da! But there is one side here that says something a little bit different. It says a plastic model car kit complete with denim-like decals. Included in kit are clear windshields, scale engines, and rolling wheels. Extra customizing parts are included for ages 7 and older, and the scale is 3/8 of an inch equal 1 foot, which I believe is 1/32 scale. Now, as you can see, this is a sealed kit, but it won't be for long. I got this from my recently departed friend, John Harries, in his estate sale after he passed away. So again, lots of fun, lots of nostalgia, and from a good old friend. Here we have the model box after I took off the shrink wrap. You can see just how clean this is now. Nice, bright, and white. And here's the actual wrap. Look at how dirty that is. All right, so what's kind of fun about this is instead of the top coming off like a normal model, like on the rest of these, it actually unpops from the end. So, and then all the parts spill out the back. So unloading out the trunk here. It's not really a trunk though. We have the nice parts molded in that really groovy yellow from Lindbergh. And our instructions. You'll notice there is no chrome on this model. And then we got our decals here as well. No chrome on the model whatsoever, but that's okay. So we've got like a body shell and frame and everything here, fenders as well. Really cool top. There's a flat Model A style radiator included in here. Got our glass, instructions. Then we've got our 34 Ford radiator shell, as well as the engine and a whole bunch of tires and wheels. I think there's an extra set in here for options for your front and rear, and that's about it. Here we have page 1 of our instruction sheet. You can see how cool this is, and it says here's the assembly plans for the Jumpin' Jeans Thrill Threads. It says this 34 tub makes for a very interesting hot rod. With rod builders looking for older cars to rebuild and customize, what would stand out more than the likes of a big, long, modified 4-door convertible? Powered by a competition V8 engine, this rod would run well at the drag strip or add on loads of chrome engine parts and a custom paint job, and this tub would be a real showstopper. Now what's beautiful about this is we can use the Molotow chrome on here, as well as bare metal foil or whatever chrome choice you want, and make this thing shine like a little jewel. When we open up the instruction sheet, we see these amazing pictures of a built-up model, and we also read, before assembling model, read notes below. Note, before building your model, check the pictures in the plan sheet and decide which model you want to build. Only one model can be built using the parts in this kit. By adding or leaving parts off of your model, you can change the way your finished model will look. Note, all parts are numbered for ease of assembly. The larger parts have the numbers on them, while other small parts have the numbers on the tab or runner next to the part. To prevent loss of parts and for ease of identification, do not break any parts off of runner until ready for use. Note, parts may be painted before assembling this model. See the box cover for correct colors or paint the model any color desired. Use paints for plastic only. Then it says the same in German, French, and Spanish. So how can we build our model? Well, looking at these pictures, we see two alternatives. One is a car without a radiator, so this would be the competition one. We see a tonneau cover over here and a roll bar, so that only allows one person in the driver's seat, really. And we've got our windshield here, and there is that blower engine again. Look at the hubcaps on here are like moon discs for high speed. And then the other option is this one, which has the Roadster fenders on it, the 29 Model A grille. Now our engine has 6 two-barrel carburetors on it, and we have mag wheel in the back, as well as a big fender back here. Now, they turn the image around this way, so there's a little push bar at the back for another car, actually, to push this out onto the high-speed track, maybe even Bonneville, Salt Flats. And here we also see the little push bar. We've got our fenders off the back. We've got these headers that dump off down the side. And as you can see here, these ones collect into one pipe, but these are actually 4 off this end. Again, the choice is up to you. The choice is yours, is what I was going to say. But yeah, it's your choice. Build it how you like. The other alternative is, of course, to build it like that, which has the 34 Ford grille in here, as well as the top that's up, no fenders, and lots of fun. So how do we build this model? Well, first off, Lindbergh starts you with the interior. So you have the body, the seats, the floor, the steering wheel, your dashboard, windshield frame, and the top parts. Next up, we have the chassis assembly and the engine assembly. So here we see the engine halves that are already glued together. We've got a shift lever up here, exhaust pipes, fan belt. You have your intake manifold, which also includes the cylinder heads. And then we have our valve covers going on here, as well as the tricarbs. Once you get the engine done, you can glue it into your frame. And you have a rear axle here with a torque tube as well, and a front axle. You'll note that these are the types where the wheels click in, so always make sure you have this area here nice and round, free of seam lines, so that those wheels and tires can rotate on the axle. Photograph 3 shows the body being glued together. Now this is showing the one with the 34 grille on it and the top up, just like on the box art. So if you follow the instructions here, this is what you'll get. But remember, the images on the first page, those are what you could study and then look on the parts trees and make up yourself. So here it shows the body, the assembled body, being glued onto the frame. And basically up here, you're just adding the top and the radiator in place. You also add in your clear windshield for your glass. Image 4 shows the assembly of our wheels, and it says on the axle to add some oil on here, but you could add a little bit of Vaseline or some kind of white grease. You could also add in a little bit of graphite, and that's just so that these wheels will turn without locking up on the axle. So what we have here is the wheel hubs, which would click into place. Then you would glue your tire to the hub, and then your wheel cover, which would cover over your wheels. So once you have that all together, it should look like the car on the cover. Now let's take a look at the parts tree, and molded in a wonderful kind of cream custard color, or maybe a light banana, whatever your choice may be here. So what we have is our rear axle. This looks like an old Ford unit with the torque tube up here, probably from 1940. We have a steering wheel. We have the front fenders, that tonneau cover. There's our full frame in here, our wheel hubs. We also have one of the seats and the body all molded on this parts tree. There is a lot of flash. Flash. Anyway, there's the body. It's kind of interesting how the parts runner is right at the top here. So be very careful when you clip these out that you have them nice and flat, because otherwise you'll have holes up in here, and that's never any fun. There is some very light door panel work on here with hinges that looks really good. It's got the correct shape of the 34 Ford that kind of scooped up and swiveled around here, whatever. Off the back, looks nice and smooth. This would be a Phaeton body. Here we have our frame, and there are a couple of little U-shaped grooves in here, and that is for the axles and other various things. Tonneau cover is nice. There's actually a texture on there. You can see the fenders have been lightened up on the supports with the holes. There are some mold marks you'll have to take care of. The seat looks really nice in here. You could paint this alternating colors for a tuck and roll type pattern. Again, lots of opportunities and options for this kit in order to make it look nice and neat. But here you can see all the flash around where the wheel is going to go on, so that's where you're going to have to really clean it so that these will rotate on that axle end. But overall, I mean, for a really nostalgic kit, this thing is amazing. Here we have a few more custard parts that are really wonderful. We've got our right and left hand side engine block. And yeah, this does look like a little Chevy 289 or something to that effect. We have these bigger tires for the back. And then you also have the option of building this with 4 equal sized tires all the way around. We have the big rear fenders for these big tires to fit into. And we also have our floor pan right in here. Now some of the parts did pop off, like this one wheel. There is a seam line right up the center of this. So a little bit of sandpaper and you could get that nice and flat. The car would be running on slicks all over the place because there is no tread pattern in here. And the rear of the tire is hollow, so it doesn't have the double back molding. And there is no press-in piece that would duplicate that. There are high mold marks on the back of each wheel, so you'd have to file those flat before putting in the wheel back. But overall, I mean, what can you do for the scale? Look at the motor, has a little starter motor in here and everything. There's a gear shift lever molded in place. Really nice stuff. Lots of flash. Ah! But overall, and mold marks. Look at how high these ones are. They're popping right off of there. But it should be good. Love how they have the holes in the fender supports. Really cool stuff. And I don't know if you can see that texture on there, but there's a texture for your floor pan. Again, really cool stuff. Now here are the loose parts in the kit, the ones that kind of popped off the parts tree. And what we have is our 2-piece roof. We have the 34 style grille. We also have our firewall, and the dashboard is molded in place on the back. And we have one of these seats. So how do these look? Well, let's bring it up to the camera here. You can see the instrument panel back there. It's got 3 gauges, 1, 2, 3, as well as a glove box door and a couple little switches up top here. And there is a parts tree attachment just underneath there. So be very careful with that. I'm losing my focus here. All right. The firewall itself is smooth, and the top of the cowl actually has 2 holes, so you could mount that windshield in there. Looking at the seat, we have the same upholstery match. So again, very nice. You could paint on tuck and roll on here. There is a little bit of a mold mark right in here that's a bit of a trouble, but should be able to fix it up. There's our 34 Ford grille, looking nice and sweet. And the 2-piece roof, texture on the top, mold marks underneath. Nice fit. Here we have our next parts tree, and this would have been wonderful if they had have chrome plated this, because basically everything that would be chrome plated is right here. We have our exhaust pipes, and you got 2 different types of headers. These look like the Chevy Y type, and then you've got the swept back ones. Actually, there's 3 on here, because here's the individual pipes dumping off the sides. We have 2 mag wheels. Too bad we didn't have 4 of those. And then we've got different wheel covers. These ones seem to have some knockoffs in here with little holes. So they might be actual factory wheels, or supposed to be represented by factory wheels with knockoffs. And then these ones are smoothed over. So they're more like your Bonneville type caps. We have our two intake manifolds here. These two little guys, we'll have to see what they are on the other side. The 29 Ford radiator, valve covers, got our blower here, the little push bar at the back, belts and pulleys for the blower, and standard belts and pulleys. We've got 3 little carburetors here and 6 down here, as well as our roll bar with a lot of flash. Now, let's turn this over. Take a look at this. So this makes everything better. There's that 29 Model A radiator on here. It's actually got a nice texture in there for the scale. Now, here we have the tricarb intake manifold. It's nice and smooth. We've got the single 3-carb manifold, which has the little ports off the sides. Again, the blower looks really nice. Really cool stuff, but again, lots of flash. Flash! And some mold marks too. Got the dropped front spring axle in here, and you'll have to clean up those ends because of the flash. Okay, yeah, so take a look at those wheels. Again, really nice stuff. I like them. They should have been chromed though, but hey, if you got that Molotow chrome pen, you could easily do that up. You could also paint the headers white, which would give them that high heat white paint. Again, lots of possibilities on this. Oh yeah, what are those little things right here? Taillights. So, again, if it was chromed, would have been beautiful, but maybe that's for round 2 to do in the future. Here we have our clear components, which consist basically of our flat plane windshields, as well as a rear window for the top. These have been countersunk down in, so they will fit nice and flush up into the openings and look pretty good. Not too much more I can say about this, so I'll just put it down. Finally, we have our decals. These are actually stickers with a peel back. You can see this is a sticker sheet, nice and thick. So hopefully they will look good on the roof, but I really want to use them because of the nostalgia of this. So here you can see the nice denim pattern on here, as well as the gold or copper colored stitching and the brass buttons. So again, really cool looking stuff. You get 2 for the door, 1 for each side, 1 for the end, and then the top itself. Unfortunately, there's no license plate on here. Maybe it doesn't matter, but take a look at how cool that is. Almost looks metallic, but it's not. It would be kind of a trick to paint the car body to also look like denim and then add these on. I'm not too sure how you would do it and pull it off, but overall, I mean, this looks great. I like good old nostalgic stuff. And I'm pretty sure when I get this done, the thrill threads will look really cool. So how would you build this model? As the thrill threads as shown on the box top, or as the Bonneville Racer, or as this really cool fendered cruiser for Saturday night using the 29 Ford grill? Let me know down in the comments below, or would you just mix and match parts? I'd also like to try to get a grasp on how you would build this thing for your collection. So now that you've seen the unboxing, why don't we build the model? Let's go down to the bench and get started. So to begin my build, I really want to focus on the engine, even though it is build sequence number 2. And the reason for that is because most model car kits start with the engine anyway, so I might as well follow suit. Now step 1 is the interior and the top, but I really don't want to get into that right now. I just want to focus on building the engine. And it appears to me that this engine is a 1955 era Chevy 265, which was later bored out to the Chevy 283. And the reason why I think that is because of the shape of the headers on here and the overall appearance and layout of this engine block. Now, what's interesting about the 265 is it was Chevy's hot new motor for 55, and in 56 it basically stayed the same. But in 57, the engine got bored out to 283 cubic inch, although Chevrolet still offered the 265.
So the original 55 and 56 Chevy 265s were in Chevy engine orange and look like this. But for 1957, the engine was painted in a yellow color, and it looked like this. Now in 57, the 283 got the Chevy engine orange treatment. So that is how they were able to distinguish which engine was which when you open the hood. So the 265 was in Chevy yellow for 57, and the 283 was in Chevy orange. So what I'm thinking of doing is making this a 57 265, and I'm going to paint it in Chevrolet orange because that would make it unique from the engines that would have been painted in Chevy engine orange. So Chevy engine yellow for this kit should look good. Here we have the parts tree from my newer kit, and you can see that it's got this gear shift lever that's sticking up out of here, whereas my original, I think it did break off and get lost over time. But you can see a lot better the exhaust ports here for our exhaust manifolds, and yeah, it really looks more like a Chevy now that you can see it with all the with the paint off. Here we've got our second parts tree, and you can see those headers that I've used on the earlier engine sitting right here by the 5-spoke mag wheels, as well as the axle and the chopped windshield frame. So if I want, I could reuse those, or I could use these exhaust manifolds as well. So the stock style Chevy manifolds, or these more racy kind. And I'll have to remove those mold marks and clean it up. Now if I move our parts tree up a bit, you can see the dual 6-pack carburetors with those little intakes on them, or little pipe scoops, I guess. And then here we have our fan belt and pulley, and then I've got the tri-carbs for the blower and the blower belt drive. And then if I just flip this over so we can see it better, got our choice of 2 intake manifolds. So this is the one for the 6-pack, and this is the one for the blower. And there's our blower there, and the tri-carbs. I also think that you might be able to use one set of these down the center of this manifold. I'll just have to check that. And there's our valve covers as well. Now the valve covers may also be a bit later. So like the, I believe it was the 327 Corvette engine. Almost looks like they're from there. So could be really any small block Chevy back in the day. Actually, one from 63 might make sense, because I believe Dan the Man said that this kit originally came out in 65, and the 75 edition is just the same exact parts tree as I saw in his video. So basically, small block Chevy, let's just go with that. Now I can begin building the engine for the model kit on the box art, and from what I can see, the box art model is basically the one they're showing you to build in the instruction sheet. And it appears to me that the engine on the box is painted in Chevrolet engine orange or engine red, and so I will end up duplicating that. The only thing it shows here is a 4-bladed fan, but we don't have that in the kit, so that's okay. Just end up painting it the same way. You can see the exhaust pipes coming down here and dumping underneath the frame, so that's what I will duplicate in this build. Now all I need to do is find the engine parts on the parts tree, clip them out, and glue them all together. So what we have right here is our engine block, right and left hand side, and it is nice to have the shift lever in here. And then here I've got the headers that I'll take off and clean up. We also have our fan belt and pulleys right here, the lower one set of these tri-carbs here, and then that intake manifold that has the intake up the center, and our valve covers, and then that should be that motor. And just to clarify, by flipping the parts over, this is the intake manifold that we want, and you can see the central intake with the little logs, or the tubes going down into the cylinder heads. Here's the parts that I'm using. We got our right and left hand side of the engine block. We also have our right and left hand side exhaust manifold, right and left hand side cylinder heads, the intake manifold, our tricarbs down here, and the belts and pulleys. So let me clean them up and paint them up and glue them up and get it all ready. Here's something I just want to point out before I continue. So I cleaned up the engine block on the sides inside where it's going to glue together because there was a bit of flash down by the transmission here, so it wasn't seating. But I've left the locator pins in for now, and I'll just show you something. So when this engine gets together, the front is actually not bad, but if you really take a look at this hole right here, it is a little lower on one side than the other. The top seems to line up okay, and the front is not too bad. However, as we turn it over, there is quite a walk in between the oil pan here, and going into the back, you can actually see that this hole is shifted quite a bit. It's like a curve here and then a curve in the center of that and up on the top. So I do believe that I am going to have to cut off the rear locating pin. You can also see there is a bit of a step in here, but maybe not so much at the front. So again, my uncle is right. Just cut those pins off and then maneuver it into the proper location and you should be fine. So what I've done here is I painted the engine block Chevy engine red from Tester's Model Master, and this could be our 327 now because of the other color, of course. Transmission is steel, oil filter is 1114 yellow, and that's a dark yellow. And then I've got the black from Tremclad for the starter motor, and I haven't painted the gear shift lever yet because I will paint that when it's mounted in the car and I can get a good grip on it. Now here is the tricarbs with little pipes on the top, painted in semi-gloss black, same as the valve covers, and I also painted our fan belt and pulleys here. And the reason why these three items are black instead of aluminum is because I want to use my Molotow liquid chrome pen. And what I do is I buy the refills, and then I squeeze a little bit out, and I'll take a paintbrush and dip it in the paintbrush and then paint it on and let that dry, and that actually helps with the chrome look instead of using the pen needle and trying to scribble on it. Then the other thing I have over here are the Chevy headers, the stock manifold style, and I painted these with steel. I'm getting a lot of light refraction here, so you can't really see how nice this is, but basically it's correct. Now once I glue these on, it'll look much like that, and that's really what we want with our engine. As to why it's so reflective, I'm not totally sure, but overall, we're on our way. Here we have our Chevy 327 after getting a healthy dose of Molotow chrome pen and the painted engine block as well as our exhaust manifolds. And I used a little drill just to drill out the ends of those exhaust pipes just to make it look more realistic. You can see how wonderful this thing looks. Let's bring her up more in the camera. We've got the little openings at the top for our carburetors painted with a little bit of black in there, just so that it looks open without having to drill them through. And if I turn the motor this way, in fact, I'll just take it off there. Oh, I lost a header. Okay, anyway, there's the chrome on the pulley, and you can see just how nice that turned out. So this will look great in our painted frame. Here we have the parts trees that include our frame, our rear axle, our tires, our front axle, and our wheels. And here you can see we've got the 5-spoke mag wheels, as well as these hubcaps, which will go into the tire later on. So for now, what we will be focusing on is the frame and the running gear parts, and then we'll come back to our wheels in a moment. The first thing I'm going to do is take my cutters here and just clip the frame off of the parts tray, and that would allow me to start cleaning this up, getting rid of any flash, and perfecting it out. I think I'll also take the opportunity to cut the rear axle off and get that ready. There we go. Now I got two of it. I'll leave the front axle for now, but this is how it will end up. There's some notches in the axle which go into those holes, and then this will go up into the front of the engine, and the engine will mount on these two pieces sticking out. Now turning this over, we can see a lot of mold marks and other kinds of things up in the frame, so I'm going to get rid of those by using my sanding block and just sanding them out. Should smooth this up and make it look quite nice, and hopefully help in the fit and finish of the model. The other thing I will do is use my number 11 hobby blade and just go along the edges here and try to get rid of any of the seam lines from the molding process and smooth it out. Now I have the frame cleaned up, and I used a little 1200 grit sandpaper just to smooth this up and give a little bit of a bite for the paint that's coming up on this to get a hold of. Now, one thing that I noticed is there was a bit of a seam line that was like a V in here, so I filed that flat in order to make it look correct. And overall, I think this does look quite a bit better than what we started with. Next up, we want to clean our rear axle, and in order to do that, I've noticed that there are mold marks there, and on the edges out here. There's also flash and a seam line that runs like this across, and across here and down and out the torque tube. So you want to get rid of that with your number 11 hobby blade. There was a spot here where it was connected to the parts tree, which I filed and rounded down. And basically you want to scrape that seam line down and then feel it with your thumb to find out where it is. Now right in here, it's crucial to get these ends perfectly round. There's a little bit of a flare out on the top here, and that is to lock the wheel nut in place once you push these on. But you want to get rid of the seam line, otherwise your wheel won't rotate. It'll drag up and be caught right in there. Here's the rear axle all cleaned up, and there's actually a couple of notches in here. So the first two that are closest to the center are actually where it mounts to on the frame. And then these notches on the end, well, they're designed for these fenders. You can see those two little posts right there. So these would drop right into that notch and give you the big fenders on the end of the axle, and enough room to put your wheel inside as well. Now, I wish I knew that when I was younger. Anyway, I took the mold marks off of here on the top surfaces, and then I had to make sure these little U-shapes were open more. And I was able to get that rear axle down nice and tight into the edges. You can't even see where the gap is up in here. It's interesting that the rear axle is just connected straight onto the frame, so I guess there's no springing in the back, which would make this a pretty hard ride in the real world, but overall it does look pretty good. Now, like it says in the instructions, before you push on those wheel caps, make sure to put a little bit of graphite or Vaseline or something on there so that there's something inside the wheels for them to rotate on, to act as a little bit of grease inside. Otherwise, they'll lock onto the axle. Here we have the glued up frame, and you can see that it's very simplistic. There's really only three pieces: the frame, the rear axle, and the front axle. But actually, depending on how you want to build this, there is a fourth piece, and that is this little push bar, and that glues right in between these two little blades. So, but in our instructions, if I just bring them over here, you can see that it doesn't show that little push bar thing in the back, unless you're looking at the other models in the set. So there it is there for the two different types of dragsters and roadsters. So that piece is used. I'm just not using it in this build. Now, we got our little engine as well. You can see the chrome in the front and the little holes under the exhaust and our chrome plated shifter. So once I paint the frame, and that's all dry, the engine will just go in like so. Of course, I'll connect this in a bit better. But there it is, popping off the back of the torque tube. All right, just hold it steady, Trev. All right, so there it is. Oops, dropped it again. But yeah, basically that is what we have. And then that 34 Ford radiator would be glued in the front. Now before I paint the new frame, I've masked off the little ends of the axles, and that's so that I don't get any paint on them when I spray this, and that will help with those wheel retainers to make them spin on the ends of the wheels instead of being jammed up with paint. Here we have our frame after I applied 2 coats of Tremclad semi-gloss black. You can see just how nice this looks. Now what I'll do is remove these hanging wire brackets that I made, as well as the tape off the ends of our axles, and that'll give the axles a nice clean surface for the retainers to rotate around on. And we'll also scrape the paint off of the engine mounting points so that once our engine gets in there, it'll be nice and solid. The next step in finalizing the build for the chassis and running gear is, of course, selecting our tires and our hubcaps. Now here you can see quite a few different ones. We have 2 of the 5-spoke mag wheels, and then we've got 2 different sets of hubcaps. So we've got this set that's here and here, and then the set in the middle. Now the set in the middle has knockoffs right there, whereas the other one has smooth caps, which sort of look like the car on the box top. Here's the box top for reference. Actually, these are more like stock 34 Ford wheels that are shown here, whereas if we look at these hubcaps, they really don't look like that at all, but with a little bit of paint and work could sort of make them look like that. But I do believe that those are these, because you got the smooth cap in the center and then the little divot holes around the outside. There are mold marks in here which would need to be removed, and the worst are actually on the knockoffs because they're right in this ring and between the knockoffs, so really hard to get in there. For tire combinations, we have 4 little skinny ones, as well as these 2 mega big slicks in the back. Now the 2 little ones would of course be like for a fenderless rod, and those would be basically stock style tires. And then the bigger ones are for our drag racing cars, which would be these tires right here. And those are the same ones that go into the fenders for our fender rod. Now, since I'm going to be building the on-the-box hot rod, it shows these wheel covers going on here, as well as the tire and the wheel hubs. So I'm going to need these wheels in here, and of course these hubs down here, and I'll save these bigger wheels for a different project. Now what's interesting to me is that they're showing these wheels with the knockoffs on them, which are basically these ones right here. But if we look at the box art itself, those wheels look like stock 34 Ford wheels, which to me actually look like this hubcap here. So I think I might use this hubcap, paint the center chrome with the Molotow pen, and the outside in the body color, which in this case of the box art is that green. And then I think it should be right, because you don't really see these knockoff things on there. That's just the stock Ford hubcap on there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So again, we've got our wheels here. Oh, let's just wind that back. We've got our wheels here, and then the wheel retainers, and then I'll use these hubcaps over here. Here's our painted frame, and I've removed the tape from the ends of the spindles. You can see just how clean they are. I also scraped the paint off of the engine mounts, as well as here on the torque tube, just on the very end. So that's where it's going to meet the transmission. So when I get a bit of glue here, I can slip the motor in place, glue it right on, and it should look pretty good. Now the other thing that I've just done for now is taken the tires and I've scraped out the center on the front, as well as a little bit around the back, and that is for the wheel retainer to glue into. And I also made sure I tried to get the paint off of here, and once I get the retainer on, it should be able to snap into place. Now the only thing I haven't done is got the hubcaps ready, because I need to figure out the color of the car first. I'll try to go with green like on the box top, but what green I'm not sure. So I'll paint the hubcaps green and then add the chrome in the center once I get a chance. Now what I did to paint the wheels and tires is to just put them on these chopsticks, which seem to fit right in that hole perfectly. And then once they're dry, you can just twist it a little, like so, and pull them off. Next step is to put our wheels onto the axles. So like it says in the instructions, first glue on the wheel retainer into the wheel. Now I have scraped the paint out of here for the hubcap, which will come up later, but there's the wheel retainer. And then it says to carefully get a little bit of oil. So I've got this special oil here. A friend gave this to me. Real expensive oil. But yeah, it's supposed to help car engines. Whoops. So what I'll do here, just apply a bit of oil, like it says, onto the end of the pin here. Okay. Then carefully try to press the wheel onto the axle. Oops. Well, that's not exactly working, is it? Okay, come here. There we go. And we got a wheel that will spin around somewhat. And that's the way it goes. There, now it's starting to roll. And it won't come off, which is just what we want. So then the next step, of course, is to go all the way around and then glue the hubcap in. But I won't do that until I paint the body, because the hubcaps are supposed to match the body like it shows on the box art. So that's what I'm going to attain. And here's our finished chassis with the 327 motor in place. You can see just how nice this lines up and looks. I also have all four wheels on. Still have to put the hubcaps in, but that's okay. These wheels do rotate, although one side is quite stiff, I guess you'd say, and then the other side is really loose, which is quite odd, but at least it will roll along sort of nicely. I don't know, maybe when the oil works itself in or something like that, should be good. But yeah, I mean, looks nice. The engine sits in there nicely. Looks good from underneath. And everything's nice. I did have an idea to take some of my weathered black and paint just the tops of the treads, or slicks in this case, and give it a look like the tire's been polished up, but the actual contact surface is rough, like it should be. So maybe I'll try that later on. But for now, I will get these hubcaps here ready and paint them with the body color, and then stick them into the wheels just so it looks like on the box art. Now that we've completed our engine and chassis, we can go back to step number 1, which is the interior, exterior, and the roof. Now, I have read over how to put this together, and I think I'm going to change it just a little bit in the video, because there is an issue with the hole in the floor and slipping it over the gear stick lever from step 2. So I'm going to try to make that a bit simpler in this, as well as there is an issue with the body and the frame rails, which we're going to address. In order to build the body and complete the car, we have to first find all the pieces that we need. So right here we've got the steering wheel, we've got the front and rear seat, we have the body. We're not going to be using these fenders on this build because the box doesn't have it. We have the back of the top of the top. We also have a tonneau cover here. And then we've got our 34 Ford radiator. We've got our windshield, the cut down one. We also have glass. Now one is for a windshield that we don't have, which is curved at the top. I don't know where that is. We also have the chopped windshield glass. We have the full windshield glass, and at the very back here, we've got the little rectangle that goes into the rear window on the top. Right here are some tail lights, which you can't see because this is upside down. And then we've got the floor for the car and the cowl and the body itself. So the pieces that I need are the floor bottom, the cowl, the body itself, the two-piece top, the 34 grille, the chopped windshield, and then tail lights, and the piece of glass that goes into the windshield as well as the rear window. Now the difficult task is going to be cutting this body out of the little frame it's in, because it has 4 attachment points. One here up on the side of the body, one toward the back, and then of course on the opposite side. And the issue with this is going to be how we cut these off in order to keep a bit of it so that we can file it down instead of trying to twist this off or whatever and getting a little crater right where the parts tree is attaching to the side of the body. And another thing that I've noticed with a kit I built previously is that it's pretty tight right here on the inside of the body where it's been channeled over the frame, as you can see here. It's tight on the frame, so I'm going to need my file in order to file this down a little bit and make it thinner, just for ease of convenience. And another part that they say in the instructions is to take the cowl and glue it on. We're not going to do that until we take the body and snake it through the gear shift lever and secure the body down to the frame. And then we can glue the cowl on. So I'm going to have to paint the cowl separately and paint the body separately, clean it all up, put the body on first with the floor in the back, and our frame rails thin down, and make sure I can snake it through the transmission, or the gear stick lever on the transmission, and then put the cowl over the top as a covering. Because otherwise it's very difficult to line up that gear stick and have it through when you can't see where it is with the cowl glued in place. So that is how we're going to have to do it. The seats are going to be cool because I'll try that denim pattern and we'll see how that looks. So just be careful cutting this out, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get it cut out so you got an idea. Now here I've freed the body from the parts tree frame, and you can see that our door handle is right here and the actual stub is sticking up here. And I've left enough of the stub out, as you can see, so that we can take our file and carefully file it down flat to meet the body. So we have to be careful not to file off the door handle. So just put my thumb on top of it, and then I can file it. Now the way I want to be looking is down here like this, so I know when to stop the file before I start filing the body, because I don't really want to do that. But again, you can see just how much meat I left out there, plastic meat, sticking out, so that we have something to work with and file down too, in order to keep this all nice and flat. Now on this side it's really good because we're well away from the door handles, so we won't have to worry about knocking them off. And another way to protect them is just get a piece of masking tape and cover over the detail you don't want removed, so that when you're filing it, if it does hit this area, it's only hitting the tape. So wish me luck on cleaning this up, because there is a lot of flash, and I'm going to have to take my file and go inside here quite a bit and just thin this area down in order for the frame to fit better on those sides. Here we have the bottom of the floor pan, and right here and here are 2 huge mold marks with a number right in the center of them. You can see it's pretty tall in there. So I've got this really rough file, and I'm just going to file these down And I'll keep going down till they're gone. And I can also do that with my sandpaper block as well. Just cross sanding and sanding as best I can in order to get that perfectly flat. Here's our parts for our fresh model kit, all laid out nicely. So we have the slope back 34 Ford grille, the firewall and the dashboard, as well as the top of the cowl. We also have the chopped windshield, and then of course our body. Over here we have the floor that goes into there, got the rear seat, the front seat, the steering wheel, and our top. Now I glued the back onto the top and cleaned it up along the edges here with the sandpaper. And I also used my knife and sandpaper just to smooth this out from all the mold marks and numbers and everything else that were on there. So top's looking pretty good. The cowl has our firewall on this side, or sorry, our dashboard on this side. The firewall is right here. And we do have our gauges, and I had to use a little putty right there because it had broken off the parts tree and left a hole. One thing that I could do on the firewall is use bare metal foil because I used to chrome these flat firewalls, but I don't think I'm going to do that because I had an issue where I did something like that and it just peeled on the edges. The front seat, it also had a couple of sink marks in here that I had to use some putty in just because they were kind of low and it's circular. Now I do have an idea here that I didn't do on my old kit back in the day, but I'm thinking of putting the floor in and then gluing the back seat to the base of the floor and then having the back seat come out with the floor as a piece, and then I can paint the inside right around here as well as the seat on the floor, and then paint the floor with some flat black. Oops. And then that way I can glue the floor in after I paint the sides with the seat in the proper place so that it all lines up perfectly, and so that the front of the floorboard touches the back of this part of the floorboard, and then everything will be all nice. Here's our car body after I painted it with some trim-clad gloss dark green, and it looks pretty much like the color on the box art. What I did was taped off in here just to protect the plastic from the green spray, because I'm going to be painting the floor a different color and gluing some seats onto it and whatnot, and I didn't want to have that with the gloss green and then have to paint over top of it or remove it somehow. So that's why I masked it in there. The green paint did have some little issues along the sides. I think if I had some more time to do a second coat on here, sand it down, and let it dry, that it would come out a bit smoother. But for now, I really don't have much time, just because I want to get this done for the video. So it will be a little bit rough, but I think it would be nice, especially with the stickers over top. It might hide some of that. Here I have the grille and the cowl, and these turned out pretty good with the trim-clad green. Don't see too much of an issue with them. In fact, this is what I was hoping the body would be more like. The only kind of issue I had is this is a piece of tape, and when I had the cowl on it, it was more, at a right angle. But as I was painting it, I think it softened the tape just a little bit, and the cowl tipped down so that the dashboard is touching the cardboard here. And hopefully that didn't put a run in under with the paint or something weird that I'm going to have to deal with. So wish me luck on that. What I'll have to do is turn the cowl over and the grille over and paint flat black in behind there. But I do believe that with these parts and the body, once everything dries, that it will look like that green that's on the side of the box. Here I have the wheels also painted in the same dark green. These will look pretty good once they're on the car because these hubcaps will be chromed, and the little holes in there, I'm going to try to paint some black paint in there. Should end up pretty much looking like the box art wheels. Oh, there we go. But yeah, so that's what they'd end up like. So what I'll do is I'll let this green paint dry for a day or two, and in the meantime I'm going to brush paint the reproduction car with some metallics. So I'll show you the steps I use in order to do that. While we're waiting for the paint on the body to dry, now is a perfect opportunity to use our acrylic colors and try to match this denim pattern that's on our sticker sheet for the model. So we need to find some kind of blue that we can use in order to paint the roof, the front seat, and the back seat. So I'm going to use some Citadel Games Workshop paint because they use a layer kind of effect in order to create colors for the models. So that's what I'll do for this. Here I have a sheet from Games Workshop from many years ago, and this is the Citadel paint system. So I found that the best kind of blue for this is this little bit here. We have Calidor Sky as a base color, Drakenhof Nightshade as a shade color, Teclis Blue as layer number 1, and Lothern Blue as layer number 2. Now to add further highlights, I could use Ethereum Blue and Gulliman Blue, which is a sort of a kind of a wash that ties the two together, or ties everything together and makes everything look universal. Now if I use this is what you end up getting. If I can hold them still. There's one of my Astra Militarums, and you can see that his blue, which is supposed to be sort of like a French uniform from World War I, it looks like denim, doesn't it? So comparing him to our sticker sheet, now the sticker sheet is a bit lighter, of course, because the Games Workshop doesn't quite make blues that match this denim, but it's not a bad effect. And I think if I put this in, it will just look like a different type of denim patched in. Like it's supposed to go up on the roof. So now imagine our roof being like that. And then it should all work out. For all the fabrics on the restoration, we are going to be using Calidor Sky Blue as a base, Drakenhof Nightshade as the shade, Teclis Blue for layer number 1, and Lothern Blue for layer number 2. And it should come pretty close to our denim texture. And these are all Citadel Games Workshop paints, and I will be using their layering system. So first you do your base coat, and then you give this whole thing a wash with the shade. Then it's a dry brush of Teclis Blue and a dry brush of Lothern Blue on the top. And basically what you're doing is you're going from a dark color, then you're darkening it even more, and then with the first layer you're bringing that color up again, and then with this one it's for the highlights. So it would go up across the top of the seats here, and this part of the seat that's going to be in the sun. This whole back would be, dry brush with the Lothern Blue, but the sides would be up to the Teclis Blue. Here's the front seat, rear seat, and the roof after finishing the denim colors with our Citadel paints. And what do you think? Does it look like actual blue jeans? Did I capture the look correctly? You can see these roof bars across here where they were the high points, and we've also got the highlights on the top of the seats, but not down the front where the sun wouldn't catch them. So again, let me know. Now one thing, the back seat is hollow, and this would be perfect to use some of this styrene sheet and glue it across to cover the back of the seat. But I think I'm going to leave it open just because there is no actual cover in this kit. And if I really wanted to cover this, I should have actually glued this to the seat and then cut it to shape with the back and then painted it, but I decided not to do that. And then I'm going to have to paint up underneath the roof here as well, just in order to not make it look like plastic. So I could either use something like white in here or just carry on with the blue denim. Now here is the denim decal, and it will be interesting to see just how this looks. but I'm having a little trouble getting it off the backing paper. Oh, here we go. Now, after 50 years, let's see how this looks. I suppose I shouldn't be touching this directly with my fingers. Actually, what I should do is come from the front. See how big this... Oh, okay. It'll go right to the back, to the front. So I'm going to lose some of my detail on those cross braces for the roof. Let's see, I think right about here. Oh, no, it is a bit short. Oh, sorry, I got out of focus. Okay. Let's just see. So it's got to come in just a little off the edge. So right about there. Oops. Right about. Have a little trouble centering this thing. So what I'll do is I'll put it on off camera here so I can get closer to it. And there it is with the sticker on. Boy, doesn't that look neat, eh? Like a denim patch just sewn right onto more denim. So let's carry on with this model and get that interior done and see just how wonderful it looks. Here's our model after gluing on the hubcaps, which are green, and applying a bit of the chrome paint on there. And we also have the holes that I painted black in the wheels. So looking much like the one on the cover. Here we have the firewall, cowl, and dashboard assembly. And I was right, this thing did fall back and lay on the cardboard. So when I removed it, it took the paint off just along that bottom edge. And of course you can see the yellow plastic underneath, but I could easily just paint that. I've got a tester's paint color that is like this green. So now I can apply my paint onto the instrument panels and a little bit of flat black up underneath. So when I turn the car over, I don't see this. Next off, I want to remove the masking tape in here and then start painting the interior as well as glue down the floor pan. Here's the interior with the masking tape removed, and you can see that a bit of paint got underneath the tape. I also got a bit of a chip right here, and this was not covered, so that's okay. You can see just how clean the plastic is from the masking. Pretty neat. So what I'm thinking of doing is using the floorboard here. Remember I glued the seat in. You can see how neat that looks. I was also thinking of maybe gluing the front seat just at the back to this floor panel, and then both of these should be able to lift out. Then I can put them back in. And then the other thing I'm going to do is remove the gear shift lever from the back of the transmission and figure out where to glue it on the floor, because this hole, when you have the stick going through the hole, it gets covered by the cowl when you drop it in place. So here's our cowl going in place. And yeah, it would cover it. So I'm going to do what Dan the man did and figure out the location for the shift lever so it comes up onto the seat a little bit. Here's the grill after taking it off of the tape, and you can see that it's quite clean in here from a plastic standpoint. So that would be painted flat black. But one thing that I've noticed with these cars, some of the 34 Fords had this all chrome. So the housing would be chromed. And then others, I've noticed that people are either painting these or they were painted, and then the grille itself is chrome. So I think I'm going to go for the grille itself being chrome on this one, and that should look pretty interesting, I think. So again, this would go right on the frame, right in the front. It should look pretty neat, this whole sloping, streamlined shovel kind of look. almost like a cow catcher on the front of a train. I don't know. But at any rate, it should be neat. Here's the interior with the front seat glued in. Now, I'll just show you what I did here. So I popped this out. So what I did is I lined up the seat with the doors, because there's a little bit of a gap in between here, as you can see, right where my finger is. There's also a big sink mark that runs across here, but I'm just going to ignore that. Anyway, so I took my seat and I glued it just on the back here with a little bit of the Tester's red glue on a stick. And really, you can see how much of this seat overhangs onto the floorboard here. So with this being loose like it is, I can now put my floor in here, and I can take my hobby knife and etch. Just hang on a minute. Okay, I can take my hobby knife here, and this is a number 16 hobby blade, has many good uses. So turning it upside down, I can just go across the front of the seat here and slightly etch in on the floor, and then pop this out and paint my floorboards up to where I etched it, and then in behind the seat here as well, paint that with the darker blue for the carpet. And then that way I know that behind this is where that seat is going to glue to. So then I can add my glue in here and then push this down. Of course, add a bit of glue onto the side because there is a little channel, a little ledge down there where the floor is going to sit. So I can easily just put this into place, and then this will be painted. Underneath will be the untouched plastic. So then I can glue the front of the seat on for the plastic to plastic contact, and then turn the whole thing over and paint all this flat black up underneath, or maybe even the green color, some floorboard color I'll figure out. And then that is all set in. Then I just have to glue that gear stick lever right into here somewhere, and then glue the cowl on. So here we have our body with the interior assembled, as well as our stick that's been moved from that great big hole back a bit into the actual seat area. And I think that looks pretty much like how it should. Now, I did paint a little bit of the chrome into the door handles up in here on the inside, but not yet the outside, because I'm going to have to handle this a little bit in order to get it on the frame. Underneath, got some flat black painted in there. Looking pretty good. Painted those sides green, but I might have to scrape a bit of paint out of the way. And then here we've got our frame and the body. I'm going to hook it at the back. Actually, what I really should do... No, I was thinking slide this forward, but it's not going to work. It's just going to be a bit too wide there. But at any rate, so what I'll do is I'll use the little holes here, or the half circles, slip them on the axle there, and then push the body down. Now Dan over at the 60s Rules channel is also building one of these, and he does say to try to pinch the frame rails in a little bit, but I'll see if I can get it in, and it should look good. Overall, I think this will look pretty much like the one on the box. I'm moving the car out of the way. I just have to paint the details on the instrument faces, but basically there's the cowl with the flat black painted underneath and the green everywhere. And then for the radiator, still green. I'll glue this on the body and then paint the chrome inside here. But there's the blackout on this side. And then I'll have to paint a bit of Tester's green around here. Now it's amazing that the green matches exactly. See if you can tell which is Tester's and which isn't. I can't. It's just such a good color match, even though they're two different brands. Tremclad in the spray can and Tester's just on its own. And then I've got the steering wheel here. And I painted it flat black because on the box art it's supposed to be semi-gloss black, but I don't really have that color. So I'm just going to leave it all black this time. not paint the chrome inside or anything. Just keep it sort of as a box art. Here I've got the body mounted on the frame rails, and I think I'm not going to bother gluing it, because I do believe why it's so tight in here is so that it actually snaps into place. Although it's not really snapping as far as going snap, you know, but there is a lot of tension on here and in the back. So I'm thinking it doesn't really need glue. Now there are some little raised things right here, little tabs I guess you call them. And the body goes behind the tabs. But other than that, I think it's very solid on here. So I will just leave that portion unglued. But of course I am going to have to glue the radiator in place because that will just fall off. So got to get it right, as well as the dashboard. And what I'll do is just sort of size up where this is and scrape the, because right here it's there's no paint right there and there. And I'll do the same on the top of the body and then glue this down. But first I got to put that steering wheel in there. Otherwise I'm going to lose my opportunity to do that and paint those gauges, of course. Here I've got my instruments painted up, and you can see the speedometer as well as a bunch of the other gauges. Got little oil pressure and that sort of thing. Trying to paint those as best I can. Little black numbers are just dots, and then I've got red needles. Now I've also scraped in between the two holes, and that is so that the windshield frame will glue down somewhere in there, and then I can paint the windshield frame with the Multol chrome pen. Here we have our 1934 Ford Thrill Threads car. You can see just how cool it looks with that denim pocket on the side door. Really neat stuff. The denim in the back for the seats, and then we've got the patch across the back. Another little pocket in the rear quarters. There we've got our little hubcaps all painted with the chrome right there. Really cool stuff. Chevy engine orange for our little motor. Our 327. You can see the wonderful chrome grille in there as well. Really enjoyed building this model. A lot of fun. And you can have just as much fun with it too. Now let me just bring this around and I'll put the top on it. Here's our car with the top up, and I added on the denim patch onto the roof as well. Again, really cool looking. A lot of fun to paint that with the Warhammer paint and get it all looking right. There you got it in from the back. The little wheels are quite interesting. They just sort of stick out of nowhere right there, as you can see as it comes around. It's really quite an interesting thing without any fenders. Would be cool to also see this with fenders if there was such a thing in this scale. But overall, again, I had a lot of fun doing it, and I think it looks pretty fantastic. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Here we have the car from underneath. You can see just how nice a flat black looks in contrast to the semi-gloss black. I also have the engine here, and you can see the holes I drilled out of the pipes and the oil filter in the starter motor. So again, really cool looking stuff. Really looks nice from underneath as well as from the top. Well, I hope you enjoyed that unboxing and build of our Jumpin' Jeans Lindbergh 1934 Ford Thrill Threads model kit. Boy, what a fun kit that thing is. And I sure hope that if you find one of these out there, now keep in mind this is from 1975, so it's an oldie but a goodie, but if you find one, that this video will help you to build it and be proud of the model that you have done. So until next time, everybody, I'd like to say happy model building, and we'll see you in the next video. And if you really enjoyed these videos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if you really want, become a member of this channel, and that will really help us out in making future videos and getting more models to unbox and build. So we'll see you in the next one.